In the mid-1800s, the American frontier was a place of opportunity and chaos, where the promise of land and fortune lured many hopeful settlers. Among them was a rugged man known as Samuel Cooper, a seasoned hunter who had made his way through thick forests and open plains, tracking game and searching for his fortune. Samuel was no stranger to hardships. He had faced wild animals, harsh winters, and the dangers that lurked in the shadows of this untamed land. But on this particular day, as he approached the bustling town of Fort Worth, he felt an unusual mix of excitement and apprehension. The air was thick with anticipation as townsfolk gathered in a large open area just outside the fort. Today was not just another day, it was an auction day. The community gathered to witness the selling of various goods, livestock, tools, and even people who had been captured in raids or sold into servitude. To some, these auctions were a simple matter of trade. To others, they represented the darker side of settling new territories. For Samuel, it was merely a chance to acquire something, or someone, of value. As he stepped into the lively scene, Samuel noticed the colorful banners fluttering in the breeze and the chatter of men and women haggling over prices. Children played nearby while their parents kept a watchful eye on them. Flashes of laughter mingled with shouts of excitement as auctioneers called for bids on items that ranged from horses to homesteads. He could feel the pulse of life around him, the hopes and dreams intertwined with shadows of desperation. With each bid placed, Samuel's curiosity grew deeper. He wandered among the crowd, his eyes scanning for something extraordinary amidst the mundane items being sold. He overheard tales being shared about recent skirmishes with local Native American tribes and murmurs about rare finds that might change one's fortune forever. Samuel felt both intrigued and uneasy at these stories, the line between life and death often blurred in this harsh reality. Then came an announcement that sent ripples through the crowd: a Comanche girl was to be auctioned off today. Samuel's heart raced as he heard whispers about her circumstances. Captured during a raid while pregnant, she represented both tragedy and opportunity. To many in attendance, she was just another item on a long list for sale. But for Samuel, something about her story tugged at his conscience. He made his way closer to the stage where the auctioneer stood, confidently addressing an eager crowd. The girl was brought forth with little ceremony. She looked weary yet strong, her wide eyes filled with a mix of fear and defiance. Samuel saw not just a pregnant girl but also a symbol of resilience amid adversity. As she stood there, surrounded by strangers who saw her only as property, he felt an unfamiliar stirring within him, the sense of responsibility and compassion. The atmosphere grew tense as bidders raised their hands one after another, each offering money without knowing or caring about her story. Samuel could feel his stomach knotting at the thought of what might happen to her if she fell into unkind hands. It was more than just an auction to him, it felt like a moment that would define not only her fate but also his own. As the bidding escalated and voices clamored around him, he made a decision that shocked even himself: he would buy her. $50, he called out boldly, surprising everyone around him with his unexpected bid. The room quieted as eyes turned toward him. Who was this man who dared interrupt the fierce competition? The auctioneer paused before acknowledging him with an incredulous look. The bidding continued for another minute before Samuel's offer held firm as no one else dared to challenge it further. At last, they struck a gavel on his winning bid, the sound echoing through the crowd like a sudden storm breaking over an arid landscape. With shock evident on many faces around him, Samuel approached to claim what he had purchased, a girl whose life would soon entwine with his own in ways neither could foresee at that moment. As she caught his gaze for just an instant before looking away shyly, he felt both apprehension and determination settle within his heart. He wouldn't let her down. This marked not just a transaction but the beginning of an extraordinary journey that would leave its mark across both worlds, settlers' grounds and ancestral lands alike, forever changing perceptions along this rugged stretch of frontier life. The Comanche tribe, known as the Lords of the Plains, were a powerful and skilled group of Native Americans who roamed the vast landscapes of the Great Plains. Their territory spanned across what is now Texas, Oklahoma, and parts of New Mexico and Kansas. The Comanche were renowned for their exceptional horsemanship and warrior culture, which allowed them to adapt and thrive in the ever-changing environment of the frontier. Historically, the Comanche people were semi-nomadic, relying heavily on buffalo hunting as a primary source of food and materials. They developed a unique relationship with these massive animals, using every part for clothing, shelter, tools, and sustenance. As skilled horsemen, they learned to hunt on horseback, leading to a rapid expansion of their influence and territory. This mastery over horses not only transformed their way of life but also established them as formidable opponents against other tribes and settlers alike. Family was at the heart of Comanche society. They lived in extended family groups called bands, which were led by respected chiefs. Women played an essential role in maintaining the home and community. They were responsible for gathering plants, preparing food, and crafting items like clothing and tools. Men typically took on the roles of hunters and warriors, tasked with providing for their families and defending their land from intruders. Comanche culture was rich in traditions that emphasized spirituality and connection to nature. They believed in a complex spiritual world filled with powerful spirits that influenced their everyday lives. Ceremonies celebrated significant events such as births, marriages, and seasonal changes. The sun dance was one of their most important rituals, a time for renewal that involved music, dancing, feasting, and even acts of sacrifice to honor their deities. When Samuel Cooper encountered the pregnant Comanche girl at auction, he was not just looking at an individual, he was witnessing a fragment of an entire culture facing drastic change. The Comanche had long been engaged in conflicts with settlers encroaching on their lands. These conflicts often resulted in violent clashes as both sides struggled for control over resources. Unfortunately, this led to many Comanche being captured or killed during raids, an aspect that made auctions like the one Samuel attended possible. As settlers moved westward in search of land and opportunity during this period of American expansionism known as Manifest Destiny, many Native American tribes faced significant challenges to their way of life. Forced removal from ancestral lands became common practice as treaties were often broken or disregarded entirely by the government. For the Comanche people, this meant not only loss of territory but also disruption of their traditional lifestyle. Hunting grounds became diminished as settlers claimed land for farming or cattle ranching. Despite these trials, the resilience of the Comanche tribe remained strong. Their identity was rooted in community bonds forged through shared experiences and cultural practices passed down through generations. Stories told by elders conveyed lessons about bravery and respect for nature while preserving their history amidst adversity. Samuel's decision to bid on the pregnant girl marked an unexpected intersection between his settler life and her upbringing within this vibrant culture. He may have seen her solely as a person in need, but she represented so much more than that, a legacy steeped in tradition that faced imminent threats from external forces seeking domination. In that moment at the auction house filled with noise and activity, neither Samuel nor anyone else realized how profound this meeting would be, not just for them personally but for future generations who would look back upon this tangled web woven across cultural lines. As he prepared to take her into his care, wanting to protect her from further harm, he found himself standing at a crossroads where two worlds collided, one steeped in tradition grounded by its roots on sacred lands while another rushed forth with dreams built upon newfound conquests across uncharted territories. With each passing day following that auction event, Samuel would come to learn more about her customs, their shared experiences possibly teaching him lessons about compassion he never anticipated, and perhaps changing his understanding forever about what it truly meant to share this land together amid its harsh realities. As the auctioneer's voice boomed through the crowd, Samuel Cooper felt his heart race with each passing moment. He had never intended to buy anything today, but standing in that bustling atmosphere, surrounded by eager bidders and curious onlookers, he found himself unable to look away from the stage. The pregnant Comanche girl stood there, gaze fixed downward, her body framed by the harsh realities of her situation. In that instant, something deep within him stirred, an urge to act, a compulsion that felt both foreign and compelling. The memories of his own struggles flashed through Samuel's mind like images in a dream. He remembered long nights spent alone in the wilderness, battling hunger and fear. He thought about how he had faced down wild beasts and harsh winters, yet here was a different kind of danger before him, a young girl caught in a world far beyond her control. The weight of his past experiences made him acutely aware of her vulnerability, and it ignited within him a fierce protective instinct. As he approached the bidding table, Samuel could feel the eyes of others upon him, their expression shifting from indifference to surprise as they processed the man who dared to interrupt their competitive frenzy. $50, he shouted without fully realizing what he was doing. The amount tumbled out of his mouth like an unplanned promise, a declaration that felt both bold and reckless. For Samuel, this wasn't merely about ownership, it was about saving someone from an uncertain fate. He thought about what might happen if she ended up in the hands of another buyer, one who wouldn't understand her story or see her as anything more than property. A pang of guilt washed over him at the idea that someone could treat her with cruelty or disrespect. His heart raced again as he remembered stories he'd heard around campfires, the tales of captured women becoming lost souls in a world that didn't recognize their worth. While other bidders quickly raised their hands for livestock and tools, Samuel felt isolated in his resolve. No one seemed to grasp the humanity behind this auction, they were focused on profit rather than compassion. With every bid that passed by him like distant thunder, he realized how much this girl represented, not just as an individual but as a symbol of resilience against forces seeking to erase her culture. When no one dared to challenge his bid after several tense moments hung in the air like unresolved tension, shock rippled through the crowd. Samuel clenched his fists with determination. This decision was not merely transactional, it was deeply personal. As he waited for confirmation from the auctioneer, anticipation thrummed in his veins. What would happen next? Would she accept help from someone who belonged to the same world that had caused her so much pain? The gavel finally struck down with authority, sealing their fates together at least for now. Sold echoed in his ears like an anthem for change. As he stepped forward to claim her, this girl whose life was forever altered by conflict, he felt a wave of emotion wash over him, relief mixed with uncertainty and an overwhelming sense of responsibility. When their eyes met briefly while she was being led away from the stage, he saw so much reflected back at him, fear mingled with hope and perhaps even skepticism about what lay ahead for them both. In that fleeting moment before she turned away shyly once more towards the ground beneath her feet, something shifted within Samuel's heart. It was as if they had shared an unspoken bond forged through shared understanding, their futures now intertwined by circumstance. In those first few moments after winning her at auction, Samuel realized this journey would be anything but simple. There would be challenges ahead as they navigated not only societal norms but also deeply ingrained prejudices surrounding Native Americans during this period of American history, a landscape dotted with misunderstandings fueled by fear rather than empathy. But despite uncertainty looming ahead like dust clouds on the horizon, Samuel couldn't shake off a feeling that perhaps together they could forge something new, a blend between two worlds charged with promises yet unfulfilled, a chance for healing amid hardship cloaked in shadows cast long before either had taken breath on this land. With each step backward into reality after making such an impactful decision at auction today came renewed determination. The path may be fraught with difficulty moving forward, but together side by side they would find their way through whatever trials awaited them across these rugged plains stretching endlessly into tomorrow. As Samuel Cooper walked away from the auction with the pregnant Comanche girl by his side, the atmosphere in Fort Worth buzzed with mixed reactions. Word of his unexpected purchase spread quickly through the community, igniting a wave of gossip and speculation. Settlers and traders alike gathered in small groups, their conversations animated with curiosity and concern about what this unusual act might mean. In one corner of the saloon, a group of men leaned over their drinks, eyeing Samuel as he passed by. "Did you see that? He actually bought her," one man exclaimed, shaking his head in disbelief. "What was he thinking? That girl's a Comanche. You know how they treat captives." His friends nodded, their expressions a mix of skepticism and disdain, reflecting the long-held biases many settlers had toward Native Americans. "Seems like a fool's errand to me," another chimed in, taking a swig from his mug. "He'll regret that decision. They're not like us, they don't know our ways." Such comments were commonplace among those who viewed the Comanche solely through the lens of conflict and hostility. Meanwhile, across the street, women gathered around a washing line, their voices hushed but lively. "I heard he's going to try to keep her as a servant," one woman remarked. "Can you imagine? A Comanche living in his home. What will the neighbors think?" The others gasped, their imaginations running wild with thoughts of scandal and shame. Some held on to the hope that perhaps Samuel had noble intentions, but skepticism loomed larger. As Samuel walked away from the auction block, he couldn't help but overhear snippets of conversation drifting toward him, each laden with judgment and speculation. "He thinks he's some kind of hero," a trader scoffed, drawing laughter from those nearby. "But mark my words, that girl will bring him nothing but trouble." Yet not everyone shared such negative sentiments. A few individuals quietly expressed admiration for Samuel's boldness. "It takes guts to stand up for someone like that," an older settler said to his companion, who nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe he sees something we don't. Perhaps he's trying to bridge a gap." Still, these voices were drowned out by the louder criticisms echoing through the community. The reactions weren't limited to casual chatter, they found their way into local newspapers too. Articles speculated on Samuel's motivations, some painted him as a misguided idealist while others branded him a traitor to his kind. Public opinion began to shape around the narrative of a man who dared to defy social norms in a time of rising tensions between settlers and Native Americans. As days turned into weeks, Samuel's choice became a catalyst for discussion on morality and race relations in the rapidly evolving frontier society. Some settlers began to question their own prejudices as they watched Samuel interact with the girl, whom he had taken into his care. The sight of them together sparked both outrage and intrigue. Children watched in awe as Samuel treated her with kindness rather than cruelty. His behavior challenged what many had been taught about how to regard Native Americans. "Look at him," one boy whispered to his friend as they played nearby. "He doesn't act like other grown-ups." But not all were willing to accept this change easily. A few settlers banded together to confront Samuel directly, believing it was their duty to protect their own way of life from perceived threats. "You're making a mistake, Cooper," one man shouted during a chance encounter in town. "That girl is dangerous. You don't know what you're getting into." The tension was palpable, and Samuel felt the weight of their stares, each filled with judgment. Despite the backlash, Samuel remained resolute in his decision. He understood that he was not just fighting for acceptance, he was forging an alliance that could challenge long-standing prejudices. As he navigated the complexities of being both a settler and her protector, he sensed that their journey together could serve as a testament to the power of empathy and understanding, two forces capable of bridging even the widest divides. In private moments shared between them, Samuel began to learn about her culture and traditions, discovering beauty in the very things others feared. Their bond grew stronger amidst whispers of doubt swirling around them, creating a quiet revolution against ignorance. The community's initial reactions may have been steeped in skepticism and fear, but as time passed and stories unfolded, perceptions began to shift ever so slightly. The tale of Samuel Cooper and the pregnant Comanche girl would soon become more than mere gossip. It would evolve into a narrative that challenged hearts and minds along the rugged trails of the American frontier, an unfolding story that promised change in unexpected ways. As Samuel Cooper settled into the routine of his new life with the pregnant Comanche girl, whom he later learned was named Arnica, he was determined to treat her with kindness rather than cruelty. This decision marked a significant shift not only in how he interacted with her but also in how he viewed the world around him. The initial shock of his purchase began to fade as Samuel grappled with the weight of his responsibility. When Arnica first entered Samuel's modest home, she looked around with wide eyes, uncertainty written across her face. He could sense her fear and hesitation. She had been through so much already. Instead of demanding obedience or treating her as property, as many settlers would have done, he offered her a warm smile and a simple gesture of welcome. "You are safe here," he assured her gently, though he knew that words alone would take time to build trust. At first, Arnica remained quiet and reserved, responding to Samuel's kindness with caution. She was not accustomed to being treated as an equal but rather as someone subjected to the whims of others. Samuel understood that rebuilding her sense of safety would require more than just promises, it required consistent actions over time. He began by offering her food and making sure she was comfortable. Each meal they shared became an opportunity for connection, and Samuel would ask questions about her life before captivity, weaving in stories of his own experiences on the frontier. Slowly but surely, Arnica started to open up and share snippets of her culture, stories filled with rich traditions and deep-rooted beliefs about family, nature, and resilience. Samuel listened intently, fascinated by what she described. He learned about the Comanche's spiritual connection to the land and their ways of living in harmony with nature. This knowledge shifted his perceptions dramatically. Instead of seeing Arnica solely through the lens of her being captured or as a victim, he began to appreciate her strength and cultural heritage. News spread quickly through Fort Worth that Samuel was treating Arnica well. As whispers turned into conversations among settlers, some were taken aback by his choices. In taverns and marketplaces, people began to speak more openly about their views on Native Americans, not just as adversaries but as human beings deserving respect and dignity. Many were surprised by Samuel's approach that contradicted everything they had been taught about their relationship with native peoples. One afternoon, while tending to some chores outside, Samuel noticed a group of men watching him from a distance. They exchanged hushed words amidst laughter that sounded less than friendly. He could feel the weight of their judgment. They saw him as soft or foolish for showing compassion rather than adopting an aggressive stance toward someone perceived as dangerous. However, instead of letting their opinion sway him, Samuel found strength in his resolve. He believed that kindness could pave new paths where animosity had once ruled. Perhaps this was how change could begin, not through force but through understanding. Each interaction he had with Arnica fortified his belief that they were forging something special together. It was an alliance born out of necessity now blossoming into mutual respect. With each passing day, Arnica began to blossom under Samuel's care. She started taking part in small household tasks, cooking meals using traditional Comanche recipes that filled their home with delightful aromas, and even teaching him basic words from her language during quieter evenings spent together under starlit skies. Their laughter echoed softly into the night, a sound that struck chords within both hearts involved in this delicate dance between two cultures. Yet challenges lay ahead. There were still settlers who refused to accept any alliance between them due solely to preconceived notions rooted firmly in fear rather than understanding. One evening at sunset while walking near town for supplies, another settler confronted Samuel directly on the dusty trail. "You think you're doing something noble? You're inviting disaster. That girl will betray you when you least expect it." Samuel stood tall, unwavering against such remarks, a newfound confidence coursing through him alongside purpose driven deeply by empathy, a stark contrast compared to earlier days spent only hunting for game rather than seeking connections beyond mere survival instincts. "I believe we can learn from one another," he replied calmly yet firmly. "We have enough hatred dividing us already." The man scoffed at such ideals before departing, but not without leaving lingering doubts behind for Samuel. Despite these external pressures weighing down upon him like dark clouds threatening rain at any moment, he remained steadfast, both for himself and for Arnica, who deserved every chance at healing far removed from past traumas inflicted upon her life. In those quiet moments shared between them, their bond grew stronger against all odds. It became clear kindness could indeed reshape not only individual lives but perhaps even perceptions across communities where compassion often faced scrutiny amid chaos wrought by misunderstanding fueled too long unchecked throughout their shared history on this rugged frontier landscape filled with promise waiting just beyond horizon lines drawn starkly against fading sunset's glow signaling yet another day, where hope reached out across barriers previously thought insurmountable. As the days turned into weeks, a gradual transformation began to unfold between Samuel and Arnica. At first, their relationship was rooted in the uncertainty born from their different backgrounds. Samuel, a rugged settler, and Arnica, a pregnant Comanche girl who had faced unimaginable hardship. Yet, amidst these differences, they started building a bridge of communication and understanding that would shape their lives together. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow across the kitchen, Samuel set the table for dinner. The aroma of stew filled the air, and he could hear Arnica moving about in the next room, her presence a quiet reassurance in his otherwise solitary life. He had learned that sharing meals was not just about nourishment but also about connection, so he invited her to join him at the table. As they sat together, Samuel decided to initiate a conversation. "Arnica," he began, trying to keep his voice steady, "will you tell me about your home? What was it like before all this?" He gestured vaguely to encompass the auction and her current situation. Arnica looked up, her eyes widening in surprise at his inquiry. It was rare for someone to ask her about her past with genuine interest rather than judgment. Hesitantly at first, she began to share stories of her life in the Comanche tribe, the vast plains where her people roamed with the buffalo, the ceremonial dances that celebrated life and nature, and the strong bonds forged within her family. Samuel listened intently, captivated by her words. He learned about their rich traditions, the significance of dreams, and how they believed in spirits that guided their lives. Each story she told revealed the depth of her culture, and with each shared memory, the distance between them shrank. In return, Samuel shared tales of his own upbringing and experiences as a hunter on the frontier. He spoke of long days in the wilderness and the challenges he faced trying to carve out a place for himself in a world filled with danger and unpredictability. He recounted humorous anecdotes about encounters with wild animals and not-so-funny moments of hardship. Laughter began to fill the space between them, an unexpected connection being woven through shared narratives. One afternoon, as they worked together outside in the garden Samuel had begun to cultivate, Arnica taught him how to plant herbs central to her culture's cooking. She demonstrated with careful precision how to dig small holes and place each seed gently into the earth. Samuel watched closely, mirroring her movements with a sense of admiration for her knowledge and craftsmanship. "Your hands are skilled," he remarked as he dug alongside her. "You make it look easy." Arnica smiled softly, encouraged by his compliment. It was an acknowledgement she cherished deeply. In those moments spent side by side, planting seeds or preparing meals, they exchanged more than just words. They began to learn each other's ways and rhythms. Gradually, Arnica became more comfortable expressing herself, often surprising Samuel with her insights about life and resilience. She would occasionally teach him phrases in her language, laughing when he stumbled over pronunciations or used words incorrectly. Their laughter became a sound that echoed throughout their home, a symbol of burgeoning trust. Yet there were still hurdles to overcome. During one lengthy conversation about how different their lives had been, Arnica hesitated before speaking again. "Samuel," she said quietly, do you see me as I am? Or just as what others say I am?" Her question hung heavy in the air between them. Samuel paused for a moment. He understood that many viewed her merely as property or a relic of conflict, but she was so much more than that. "I see you," he replied earnestly. "You are Arnica, strong and full of life, and I want to learn from you." Her eyes glimmered with unshed tears at his sincerity, illuminating the fear that lingered deep within her heart, a fear of being seen only through the lens of her past trauma rather than as an individual with hopes and dreams. Their journey together was still fraught with challenges. Whispers of discontent remained in Fort Worth regarding their unconventional relationship. But as Samuel and Arnica continued to build their bond through shared stories, laughter, and mutual respect, they began creating a narrative that defied societal expectations. In time, they were no longer defined solely by their differences but rather by their willingness to understand and support one another. The love born from compassion began to blossom, a quiet revolution against not just personal adversities but also broader prejudices lingering in a world often reluctant to change. With each passing day, this unlikely duo carved out a space where two distinct cultures could intersect. Through communication and shared experiences, they discovered unity amid diversity, a testament to the strength found in connection against all odds along the rugged frontier where hope flickered like stars lighting up the vast night sky above them. As Samuel and Arnica continued to strengthen their bond, they found themselves facing numerous challenges that tested their growing relationship. The rugged landscape of the West was not just a backdrop for their unfolding story, it was also fraught with tension and danger. One evening, while Samuel was out hunting, he returned home to find Arnica visibly shaken. Her eyes darted toward the door, and her hands were trembling as she prepared dinner. "What happened?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. "Some men from town came by," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. They said things about you and me. They don't understand what we have." Samuel felt a pang of anger wash over him. He knew the kind of prejudice they faced, but hearing it directed at Arnica stirred something deeper within him. "What did they say?" he pressed gently, moving closer to comfort her. "They think you are foolish for protecting me," Arnica admitted. "They called me names." Samuel felt his fists clench at the injustice of it all. "They warned me that I should not trust you," she added, looking down at her hands as if ashamed. In that moment, Samuel realized how fragile their connection was in the eyes of those who held tightly to fear and ignorance. He reached out to take her hands in his, looking into her eyes determinedly. "You must know that what I feel for you is real," he said, his voice steady. "We will face this together." But prejudice wasn't their only concern. As tensions flared between settlers and Native American tribes in the area, rival groups posed an ever-present threat. One chilly morning while they were gathering firewood outside their home, they heard distant shouts carrying through the crisp air, an indication that trouble lurked nearby. "Those are Comanche warriors," Arnica exclaimed as she swiftly turned to Samuel, fear etched on her face. "What do we do?" he asked urgently, scanning the horizon for signs of movement. "We need to hide," Arnica urged, quickly leading him away from their visible location toward the forest at the back of their homestead. As they crouched behind a cluster of trees, Samuel could feel Arnica's body trembling beside him, not solely from fear but also from uncertainty about how her own people might react upon seeing her with a settler. Peering through the foliage toward their home, he spotted several mounted warriors riding fiercely towards them. It struck him then just how precarious their situation was. Although he had intended to protect Arnica from prejudice among settlers, now he might have to shield her from those on horseback who considered her allegiance to him a betrayal. "They may not understand," she whispered urgently. "They see me as one of them still." Samuel looked down at the ground where leaves crunched beneath them as he thought through what might happen if they were discovered. A wave of panic washed over him, knowing how much hinged on this moment. As the group approached closer, noises of excitement mingled with laughter rang out among them before one voice suddenly called out. It was demanding something, an order perhaps, to circle back towards another path through accompanying fields. Samuel turned to Arnica's focused expression, sensing that there was something more than fear bubbling beneath. A resolve sparked as she stared with determination into his eyes. "Trust me," she said simply but firmly before urging him forward again cautiously along their originally intended escape route deeper into their woods. Before long, the sounds of thunderous hoofs faded away into distance behind them. Every heartbeat drove adrenaline through both of them until silence finally settled between trees, encasing them in protective shadows like old friends reborn anew after trials weathered together time after time before this day itself unfolded. Though they breathed sighs of relief upon noticing danger had passed, there remained an unspoken understanding that challenges awaited just around every corner. Prejudice lingering in towns coupled with very real threats awaited like storm clouds hanging heavy overhead, threatening rain against clear blue skies deep above. From fellow settlers, judgment forging pathways toward potential violence wielded by truths weighed against apparent alliances they formed despite adversity constantly surrounding them beyond any horizon line drawn sharply against fading sunlight. Painting everything golden across open plains beyond sight, yet visibly encompassing realms filled with commitment amid fractures vying against hope, curving just over ridges seemingly endless ahead, laid sprawling wide, waiting silently, wanting possibility intertwined despite this fragile web spun acros. Discord spanning collective souls searching all ways possible, arriving through gentler paths, wanting peace rather than war, seen too often drawn recklessly together, pulled apart endlessly without fail, seeking resolution tempered by compassion rather than intolerance's weight upon shoulders stretched thin yet resilient, united, standing firm, grounded, ready, pushing forward side by side, trusting love stood faithfully as armor gained against darker storms approaching, anywhere across newly forged trails, waiting quietly beyond each step taken, even if fraught with inherent risks ahead, together still reaching boldly stretched arms, embracing tomorrow, resting assured as life blossomed steadily forth against all odds, tangled beautifully woven around beginnings, ever resilient, aspiring toward brighter stories untold yet yearning amidst histories unfolding. The arrival of Arnica's child marked a profound turning point in both her life and Samuel's, forever altering the course of their shared journey. The days leading up to the birth were filled with anticipation and anxiety, as Arnica's pregnancy reached its final stages. Samuel was both excited and terrified, his mind racing with thoughts of fatherhood and the challenges they would face as a family in a world that did not easily accept them. One crisp morning, Arnica began to experience the first signs of labor. The sun streamed through the small window of their home, illuminating the small space that had become a sanctuary for both of them. Samuel could see the determination etched on Arnica's face, but he also noticed the fear that flickered in her eyes. Holding her hand tightly, he reassured her, "You are stronger than you know, and we will get through this together." As labor progressed, the hours seemed to stretch endlessly. Despite his resolve, Samuel could feel a knot of anxiety tightening in his stomach. He was no midwife, he had spent years tracking through forests and hunting game, but now he needed to muster all the strength and knowledge he could find within himself to help Arnica through this challenging experience. With each contraction, Arnica leaned on Samuel for support, drawing strength from his presence as their connection deepened further. She whispered stories of her ancestors and sacred traditions, reminding herself of the strength of the women who had come before her. Samuel listened intently, grounding himself in her words as they intertwined with their shared history. When Arnica finally cried out in pain, Samuel realized that she was nearing the moment they had been waiting for. Panic surged through him as he recalled bits and pieces he had learned from watching other homesteaders during births. "Just breathe," he whispered softly, nudging her through each wave of pain with gentle encouragement. After what felt like an eternity filled with screams and labored breaths, the room grew quiet except for the sound of their mingled breaths. Then came a sharp cry that pierced the silence, a sound so pure it ignited a wave of overwhelming emotion in Samuel's heart. "It's a girl," Arnica exclaimed breathlessly, her eyes shining with tears of joy as she cradled their newborn daughter in her arms. Samuel felt an immense swell of pride and love wash over him as he gazed down at the tiny bundle swaddled against Arnica's chest. In that moment, amidst their struggles and societal challenges, everything else faded away. The child symbolized hope, a new beginning that transcended the divisions that had once threatened to tear them apart. As they looked at their daughter together for the first time, Samuel and Arnica felt an unspoken promise form between them, to protect this little life at all costs and nurture it with love drawn from both their cultures. In the days that followed, Samuel took on new responsibilities as a father while continuing to support Arnica during her recovery. He found joy in learning how to care for their daughter, a task that filled him with an unfamiliar tenderness. With every diaper change and lullaby sung softly by candlelight, he grew more adept at balancing his roles as both protector and nurturer. Arnica introduced traditional Comanche practices into their daily routines. She taught Samuel how to bless their daughter using rituals passed down through generations. Each word spoken with reverence served to bind them closer together not only as parents but also as partners committed to blending their rich heritage for the sake of their child. Both members of this new family faced societal scrutiny from settlers who viewed their union through a lens clouded by prejudice. To some, they were an oddity, others struggled to comprehend how a settler could choose to build a life alongside someone from a tribe once considered adversaries. Yet within their home, their sanctuary, Samuel and Arnica found solace from voices outside attempting to sow discord. The birth of their daughter became a focal point around which their lives would pivot. It challenged both Samuel's understanding of what it meant to be a man in this unforgiving land while deepening Arnica's belief in resilience born from love amid hardship. As news spread throughout Fort Worth about Samuel Cooper's unusual family dynamic, his commitment to not only protecting Arnica but also embracing and celebrating their daughter's dual heritage, their story began to shift perceptions within their community like ripples in water stirred by a gentle breeze. With each passing day, they faced challenges together, not just as individuals navigating a complex world but as a family bound by love forged through trials experienced hand in hand against adversity. Their daughter's birth had heralded not just new life but new possibilities, a future shimmering brightly ahead where understanding could bloom amid differences once thought insurmountable. In the rugged landscape surrounding them, where fear often reigned supreme, they began carving out hope like paths worn into earth beneath weary feet traveling onward together forever changed through every moment shared across years yet to come. The birth of Arnica's child stirred both curiosity and controversy within the communities of settlers and Native Americans, marking a pivotal moment that began to shift long-standing attitudes and relationships. As news spread of the arrival of a half-Comanche girl into Samuel and Arnica's family, reactions varied widely, from admiration to scorn. In Fort Worth, the reaction among settlers was mixed, encapsulating the larger struggle between tradition and progress. Groups gathered at local taverns to discuss the implications of this unique union. "What will happen when she grows up?" mused one man, his voice carrying skepticism as he raised a mug, the conversation ignited with gossip. "Will she choose her tribe or her father's people?" The fear of cross-cultural ties influenced their thoughts, leading to entrenched discussion steeped in prejudice. However, not everyone viewed the situation so negatively. Some settlers were taken aback by Samuel's commitment to Arnica and their daughter. A woman named Martha often hosted gatherings where she would share stories about the family, painting a picture filled with warmth and hope. "Samuel is proving that love knows no boundaries," she would say with determination. Her words inspired others to reconsider their views, planting seeds of acceptance that grew slowly but surely. Among Arnica's Comanche community, reactions were equally varied. Initially, warriors and elders expressed pride. They spoke of how this child could symbolize potential unity between their people and the encroaching settlers. There was a sense that this little girl could help heal wounds created by years of conflict. "She has the strength of both cultures," an elder remarked during a gathering under the evening stars, urging others to embrace the unity this new life represented. Yet there were dissenters among her kin who found it difficult to accept Arnica's choices. Some whispered behind closed doors, questioning her loyalty. "How can she bear a child with a settler?" they would say in hushed tones. "What kind of future does this hold for us?" Their concerns echoed deep-rooted fears about identity and heritage, fears that threatened to overshadow the joy surrounding Arnica's child. Despite facing scrutiny from both sides, Samuel and Arnica remained resolute in their commitment to nurture their daughter within a loving environment filled with blended traditions. They celebrated her arrival through various cultural practices. Samuel learned how to bless his daughter using Comanche rituals while Arnica embraced settler customs in raising her child. As weeks turned into months, those who encountered Samuel and Arnica's family began to notice the happy laughter echoing from their home, sounds of joy that could not be easily ignored. Children from neighboring families started playing outside on the property, drawn by curiosity about the new family that defied expectations. It became a symbol of a changing tide. More settlers began showing interest in understanding not just Arnica's culture but also the challenges faced by their family. The seed sown by Martha soon sprouted into a movement, where community gatherings facilitated open dialogue regarding mutual respect and coexistence. Residents began sharing food, some Comanche dishes alongside traditional settler meals, inviting one another into homes for fellowship rather than fear. One afternoon marked a significant development. Samuel organized a gathering with both settlers and members of the Comanche tribe at their homestead. He stood before a crowd that included his neighbors and several warriors from Arnica's tribe, feeling somewhat nervous yet hopeful for what lay ahead. "My daughter will be raised to honor both sides of her lineage," he declared passionately, glancing at Arnica beside him as she cradled their little girl in her arms. "This child is a bridge between us, a chance for our two worlds to learn from each other." Some settlers shifted uncomfortably, past grudges resurfaced in quiet murmurs. However, Samuel's sincerity resonated with others who saw an opportunity for growth rather than division. Conversations flourished as barriers began to rise. As seasons changed, so did hearts. A gradual shift took place among communities toward understanding rather than judgment. The birth of Samuel and Arnica's daughter had transformed from mere gossip into something bigger. It became a profound narrative that invited reflection upon what it meant to belong, to create a new story across cultures intertwining like branches reaching upward toward an open sky. With every shared laugh, every meal exchanged between neighbors, even moments spent bridging differences, they built something important. Families intertwined not by blood alone but bound together through love and acceptance amid tumultuous times. Once deemed unlikely paths forged brighter futures, united across lands shared intricately, dancing forward hand in hand undeterred through any storms they might face, anew, filling lives with hope crafted from dreams waiting patiently drawn bright across horizons. As time passed, the unexpected bond forged between Samuel Cooper and Arnica not only transformed their lives but also left an indelible mark on the community around them. Their union represented a delicate yet powerful intersection of cultures that challenged the entrenched prejudices of the West during a tumultuous period in American history. Samuel and Arnica's daughter, raised in a household steeped in both settler and Comanche traditions, became a living testament to the potential for harmony amid division. She grew up surrounded by the rich stories of her parents' heritage, learning to navigate the complexities of her identity. Her laughter echoed through their homestead, symbolizing hope and change for both communities that had previously viewed each other with suspicion and fear. The influence of their family extended beyond their immediate circle. As Samuel and Arnica actively engaged with both settlers and Comanche tribes, they opened doors for dialogue and understanding. Their home became a gathering place where people from different backgrounds could share meals, stories, and experiences, an invitation to bridge cultural gaps that had long been left unaddressed. With every shared moment, they fostered a spirit of collaboration and respect that began to dissolve barriers previously thought insurmountable. In Fort Worth, whispers about Samuel's unconventional family shifted gradually from skepticism to admiration as more residents witnessed the love and unity that flourished within their home. Martha, an early supporter of Samuel's commitment to Arnica, organized community gatherings where they could come together to celebrate the blending of cultures. These events, filled with lively conversations and laughter, became pivotal moments that encouraged others to embrace diversity rather than fear it. However, not all reactions were positive. Some settlers continued to cling to outdated notions rooted in prejudice, unable to accept the changes unfolding before them. They viewed Samuel and Arnica as symbols of a threat to their way of life, a belief that drove them to speak out against the couple's efforts. Yet, with each challenge faced, Samuel and Arnica stood firm in their resolve. They understood that change takes time and courage. They were determined to remain steadfast in their belief that love could conquer hatred. Arnica's connection to her Comanche roots also deepened as she took on the role of a mother. She taught her daughter about their traditions, sharing stories passed down through generations. The child learned about her ancestors' resilience in the face of adversity and the importance of honoring one's heritage. This upbringing instilled in her a sense of pride that would serve as a foundation for navigating the complexities of her dual identity. As years turned into decades, this family's story became woven into the larger narrative of the West, one that began to reshape perspectives on race relations and acceptance. The birth of Arnica's daughter was no longer just an event, it was viewed as a catalyst for transformation within both communities. People began to recognize that coexistence was not only possible but essential for building a brighter future. The legacy of Samuel and Arnica's relationship resonated through generations. Their journey inspired others to question deeply ingrained biases and fostered a growing movement toward empathy and understanding across cultural lines. The once divided communities began to see one another not as adversaries but as neighbors capable of mutual respect. In this way, Samuel Cooper and Arnica did more than create a family, they sparked a change in local history that rippled outward like waves across calm waters. The impact of their bond transcended societal norms of the time and served as a model for future generations facing similar struggles. Ultimately, their story became one of resilience, showcasing how love could triumph over prejudice and how two different worlds could come together to create something beautiful. As people reflected on this extraordinary union between a settler hunter and a Comanche girl, they found hope in the idea that understanding could flourish even amid discord, leading them toward a united path forward across the vast landscapes they called home. The legacy left by Samuel and Arnica continues to inspire today, a reminder that compassion can change hearts, reshape histories, and illuminate paths toward unity where once only division existed. Their lives intertwined created not just a family but also a vision for what could be achieved when love is allowed to transcend boundaries drawn by fear, a testament to the enduring power of connection in an ever-evolving world.